This is the TSG Multimedia podcast for October of 2020. We're sponsored this month by Soundtraxx, Rails by the Bay 2021, and the TSG Train Crew on Patreon. Thank you very much. I'm your host, John Abaticola, and this month I have some news from September, a few updates on some of the upcoming programs, and more. If you like the content on this channel, please hit the thumbs up button. Now let's get to the most recent news from Soundtraxx. All right, so I have George dialed up here on the computer. Let's go to him now. Hey, George, what's up?
Hey, John, another good time and another fun, how shall we say, month in our lockdowns and so forth. So we've actually been, I'll say, the one thing about it is we've been actually busy because there's a lot of modelers that are at home working on their trains. And so we've been actually doing really well, and we appreciate all of the support during this time. It just makes it a little difficult because, of course, we're working with not normal facilities. I mean, I'm working from the house primarily, answering emails and doing phone calls and stuff like that. So it's a disruption, but I mean, we're fighting through it, and we appreciate all the support. And, as always, John, it seems like just yesterday we were talking.
Yeah, this happens so fast. And every time we go to record one of these segments, I think, wow, it's already time,
Absolutely. Yeah, because you send me this message and say, hey, George, we need to talk. I'm like, didn't we just do that last week? And then I look at the date, and it's the 24th or something. It's like, where'd the time go?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
what do you got for us this time? You got some announcements, or what's up?
So I've actually got another announcement. I mean, the one thing I will say also is we've been busy. We've been trying to keep things moving and keep new products coming out because, we get a lot of questions from customers. So as you may notice here over my shoulder, a model of a big boy.
Yeah. Now,
this particular model is one that I've had for years. This was an original Precision Craft models by Broadway Limited. And this was originally released, I don't know, years and years ago, long before I had the name on my shirt. And when I took it home, the sound system that was in it was very subpar. And so I had actually converted it to an original Tsunami TSU 1000. And the reason it's out again is because with all the excitement of the recent renovation of the Big Boy 4014, last summer we were actually able to go out and get some exclusive recordings of the actual 4014. And so as part of our announcement, we now have what we're calling a TSU Big Steam decoder, and this will be available in a few different board formats. But the idea is that we made those recordings available to you guys so that you can upgrade either older models like this one here, or you can, if you get one of the new Athearn big boys without the sound, you can get the TSU 21P NEM8 with the Big Steam decoder sounds, and you'll be able to plug it right in, and that way you get the same sounds that anybody would get ordering the big boy with the factory installed decoder, because they also have those big boy sounds on their decoder for the Athearn big boys.
Oh, cool. That was a question I was going to ask you. So that is what comes with the Athearn big boy. Very cool.
Yeah, so I think it was last spring, we were talking about this and working with the folks at Athearn, and one of the announcements was, of course, the new big boy to coincide with the running of the 4014, and we had done a video on our YouTube channel showing how we can use existing sounds in the Tsunami 2 Steam to make the big boy sound. But then since then, we were actually able to get the actual recordings, and so we changed course a little bit, and we're able to supply those to Athearn for their factory installed decoder. But now we wanted to make sure that it was available in the aftermarket as well, so that you can upgrade prior sound systems or your models.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I do have a question about this Big Steam. Usually these decoders seem like they have a ton of different sounds on them. What other sounds are on the Big Steam decoder other than the new 4014 sounds?
So, well, that's pretty much the biggest bulk of it, but it does add in a few extra options. So, for example, here, let me go ahead and grab my throttle, and I'm going to unmute the locomotive. So, of course, you're going to hear that initial air compressor sound as it's going. You
Right.
can hear that ka-chunk of the air compressor, and that was recorded off of the 4014, so it gives you another air compressor choice. Now, one of the other sounds that's unique to this is what's called the feed water heater system. And the feed water, it takes the place of the injector, so it's located down here below the cab. And what this does is, instead of being a traditional injector, it actually is a feed water system. So it pressurizes the water and feeds the boiler at a much faster rate than a typical injector could do, because you can imagine how much water this locomotive would go through. So that's selectable in place of one of the injectors on our big steam. And then, of course, we have our whistle and our bell from the 4014. So let's take a listen to that. And then there's also the new dynamo recorded off of the 4014 that you're hearing now. And then we also have the bell, as I mentioned. So you've got some different choices here that really allow you to model some more of the bigger steam locomotives that are out there, in addition to the 4014. Now, of course, there is the 4014 exhaust chuff. So let me start moving this one here a little bit in the forward direction so you can kind of hear it a little. So as I put some pressure, you can hear that exhaust chuff get a little louder. And that's our dynamic digital exhaust feature. But then I bring it to a stop. Now this is just another different exhaust chuff, so you can select this. You heard the articulated exhaust chuff here, but the exhaust chuff is available for any of the different cadences that we have, including wheel slip with the articulateds, a conventional 4 chuff rod, or a 3-cylinder Shay or something like that.
Very cool.
So there's a lot of cool sounds that are built into it. So, definitely be sure to check those out. And those are going to be primarily a web exclusive, but available also at select retailers. So check with your retailer, but also check our website at soundtraxx.com to be able to get that decoder. And it will be, currently it's planned to be in the TSU 1100, the TSU 2200, and the TSU 21P NEM 8. And that's the 8-function version of the 21-pin decoders.
Right, very cool. Every time you say TSU, I expect you to say TSG.
Well, I'm sure there was some intention there.
So what else is going on? You got some modeling tips or something you mentioned earlier?
Yes, so I actually do have a modeling tip, and what I want to show you, this is something that I kind of thought about after I brought this out. Now, this locomotive, I have not touched this locomotive since I've lived here in Durango. So when this came out, we needed to do an installation video, and we wanted to kind of show off the decoder. So being at home, of course, I had to think, well, what do I have? Well, I've got this locomotive. So on our YouTube channel, we'll be posting a conversion, how to convert from what I had already done to the Tsunami 2 upgrade, to show you just how easy it is to change from an original Tsunami to a Tsunami 2. But the reason I wanted to bring this up was a modeling tip that was, this is something I came across years and years ago in my weathering with this particular locomotive, and any steam locomotive really. When they're filling the tender, I don't know how often you guys have ever looked and paid attention to it, but when that water is filling up, they're not really worried about whether it flows over the sides or flows on top of the tender deck and so forth. It's not like they're saying, "Oh, getting close, better stop." Nope, they put as much water in there and until it's flowing out all over the place, because obviously they don't want to get stuck without water down the line quite some way. So one thing I thought would be really cool is we use that 2-part epoxy or other water effects on our models to build lakes and streams and ponds. Right. And so I thought, well, I don't necessarily need to use 6 cups of this stuff or quarts of it or whatever. I can just mix a little bit of it and just dab it on top. So as these photos you can see where I've got a little bit of that 2-part epoxy on top of the tender deck, so that way you can see where the water has overflowed. And I'm holding one of these now, and I'm going to bring it up here to the camera, so I'm not sure how well you can see it, but you see the water hatches right here, and then you can kind of see where some of the water has overflowed and collected here in the corner versus the rest of the side. So it's a really cool weathering effect. And what was interesting is I didn't really think anything of it. It was just something I had done, personal observation. You notice this stuff around you, and we take it to our modeling techniques. And one of the guys in the train club back home when I used to be there, unfortunately, I found out he's passed away a couple years ago, but he came over to me and he saw that and he said, "Man, that is really cool." And he said, "Can I do that, or is that a trademark?" And I thought to myself, a trademark? I'm just modeling. I mean, it'd be the same as like asking somebody how to build a tree if that was trademarked. And so I thought, no, use this. I mean, so I'm perfectly happy sharing that cool modeling tip with you and your viewers, because I think it's a really cool way to help add that extra level of realism. And even if you want to run some streaks down the side of the tinder shell, I didn't do it on these, but you could even go so far as to do that. I'm perfectly happy sharing these techniques with anybody. So if it helps somebody become a better modeler, I'm all for it.
Oh, for sure. It's funny you should mention that, because one of the things that I've heard said, and it really is a tribute to the kind of modelers we have where I live in the Bay Area, is they say, that modeling is kind of an expensive hobby, and it is. But the one thing that we can all share freely is knowledge. And I think tips like that fall into that category. So that's really cool. And, people can use it or not. It's up to them. But I think it's a cool little way to make something more realistic. So thanks for that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Always happy to share that. And so now I have to look and see what other kind of cool stuff I can come up with for next month.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that too. Anytime if you have a modeling tip like that you'd like to share on the podcast, whether it's a Soundtraxx Soundbyte or not, let me know, because you're welcome on anytime. So,
sure, absolutely, happy to do it.
Yeah, I do have a question though. I just noticed you're looking a little scruffy there. Did you lose your razor or something? What's up with that?
Well,
I mean, I thought you get dressed up for these shows,
Well, I normally do, but I will tell you that working at home, this actually started off a little bit of laziness, because for a week or so, I didn't feel like going out and shaving. It was just like, what the hell difference does it make? Well, about the same time, the NHL playoffs were going on, and my team, the Dallas Stars, kept winning. And they kept winning, and then I started realizing that, hey, wait a minute, they've actually advanced farther than I expected them to, and I haven't shaved. Maybe there is something to this whole NHL playoff beard thing. And so as we stand today, Game 6 is coming up here very quickly, and so I'll either be shaving tonight or hopefully later in the week after they win the cup. But we'll see. But it's kind of one of those, it's been there so long now that if I shave it, they're guaranteed to lose.
Oh, right.
Not that this really has any effect on whether they're going to win the cup or not. But it's a fun little thing. It's an NHL hockey tradition. You always see a lot of the players growing out their playoff beards. And so for me, I was like, well, it started off as laziness, but now it's kind of there. But the part that bothers me is there's a lot of awful gray in this side over here. And... it's just kind of like, oh, it's coming. But the good news is up here on the top, there's no gray yet. And my two younger brothers are both gray and bald. So I'm doing good.
Well, I mean, I guess as long as you have someone to compare to, right?
There you go. Man. Exactly.
Yeah. And let me tell you, it doesn't get any darker as you get older. Trust me. I haven't grown, right? I haven't grown my little goatee now for... I think it's been 3 years, and the last time I had that thing growing in, I think it was mostly gray. So it's not gray; it's actually silver. There's a difference.
There is a difference. Mine's just scruffy gray right now.
Right. So now I do have another question. And you beat me to the punch last month, but you're not going to do it this month.
Uh-oh.
I'm wondering about that. Yeah, no, I'm wondering about that code we've been using, the TSG 15.
Yeah, well, we've decided to extend
the discount?
We've decided to extend it at least another month. And
Okay.
So that way we can give your viewers the opportunity to get this decoder, this big boy Steam decoder, at the 15% off on our website at soundtraxx.com.
Right. That's cool. And I do want to mention to the viewers, since we're on the topic, use the code, okay? Because when Soundtraxx gets you using the code, they know that sponsoring the channel is doing them some good, and it's doing you some good too. I mean, there's a reason why I'm going to bat here, and it's so that you can get a discount, and it also helps the channel. So I think that's important to mention. No, not necessarily to you, George, but just to the viewers, because, you know, if people have a chance to get the 15% and then they don't, you know, maybe they forgot or whatever, that doesn't do them any good, but it also doesn't do anybody else any good either. Where if they do use it, then everybody wins. You guys get a sale. You know that they're watching the show on this channel, and they got a discount. So I think that's a great thing. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And with ad dollars becoming very, very important to pay attention to where they're spent, I know management reviews it all the time. And so we got to make sure we're getting the return on dollars. So, guys, we appreciate the support. And, John, we do appreciate all the work you do and growing your channel and your viewership. So let's make sure that we continue to keep this partnership going.
Yeah, right on. Okay, well, hey, is there anything else you got for us this month?
I think that's going to be covered it for this month. So be sure to check out the website. All three decoder formats are not necessarily going to be available exactly the same time. They're going to be rolling off the presses here or off our machines downstairs. So over the course of the next few weeks, they'll start getting all on the shelf. So be sure to check it out. And if the format you're looking for isn't there, feel free to reach out to us at sales@soundtraxx.com. We'll give you an update and let you know when we're expected to have them on the shelf and ready to go.
Yeah, sounds good. And don't forget, TSG 15 at checkout for 15% off of this nice new decoder. Right on, George.
That's it. Well, thank you very much, John. Appreciate it. And thanks to all the viewers out there. And, John, I guess we'll see you next month.
All right. Thanks, George. We'll talk to you then.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks again, George, for the news and the modeling tip. I figure if we see that wet, tender look on someone's models, we'll have a pretty good idea where they heard about it. Also, and this is for everyone watching, please use our discount code on the Soundtraxx website. Like I said during our talk with George, it helps them know that their sponsorship is worth continuing, and that helps a lot with keeping the lights on around here. You get great decoders with a nice discount too, so it helps everyone all the way around. The code is TSG15, and it gets you 15% off any order at the Soundtraxx website. So anyway, Rails by the Bay 2021 is the name of the National NMRA convention that's being planned for next July in my area. It includes all kinds of great stuff, including layout tours and clinics. So let's go to Chris Palermo now and hear about some of what's being planned clinic-wise. So, Chris?
John, in this update, I'd like to highlight 2 clinics we recently booked. Have you been working on your layout for years? Wouldn't it be great to press the fast forward button and get it all finished? Guy Cantwell will show exactly that in a clinic titled Fast Forward, 15 Years of Layout Construction in an Hour. Join Guy for a photo presentation on the construction of his Willoughby line layout that compresses 15 years of construction into a short presentation. You'll watch as the layout grows from ground zero into a multi-deck monster. Guy will show how he has approached some of the classic double-deck construction issues, such as crossing a door, lighting a lower deck, building a helix, supporting an upper deck, and staging. Next, how would you like to have a structure on your layout that is truly unique? Don Wynn shows you how with his clinic titled Kit Bashing, Think Outside the Walther's Box. In a clinic oriented to the beginner, Don will discuss different reasons for kit bashing, then go over a number of techniques to help you build an impressive structure. You'll come away with enough tips to successfully build a structure to fit your needs and have the confidence to get started. These are just 2 of the clinics we're planning in an impressive clinical program that will be a cornerstone of NMRA 2021 Rails by the Bay in Santa Clara from July 4 to 11, 2021. Join us in California for the convention, and as always, for complete information, visit our website at www.nmra2021.com. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Chris. I've known Guy for a few years now, and to say he's an excellent modeler is an understatement. You can see the video of his layout from 2017 right here on the channel to get an idea of how good of a modeler he is. I've added a link that just appeared at the top right corner of your screen if you're watching on a computer. Check that out when you're done here, and you'll see what I mean. If you're on a TV or some other device that doesn't show the link, like I just described, just search for Guy Cantwell on this YouTube channel and you'll find it. I think I speak for everyone involved when I say that we are really, really looking forward to next year's convention. And now, for some of the things that I did last month. That'll give you an idea of what to expect to be coming out on the channel in the coming weeks and months. So on Tuesday, September 8th, I was in the studio here wrapping up the editing on a video, basically minding my own business, when I got a message from my friend Dave. You know Dave as Sparky107107 here on YouTube. Well, Dave wanted to test his newly installed hardwired internet connection. So I started up my live streaming software here, and we went live with our second ever live call-in show. And over the course of the next 4 hours, we went for a new record of 4 hours. We talked to anyone who wanted to call in and talk about all kinds of topics, from model brands to operations to layout building. If you missed it, you can find it at the link that's about to appear in the top right corner of the screen. Again, if you're watching on a computer, there it is. I'll probably go live with a call-in program again this month, but like last month, I don't know for sure when it'll happen. So if you don't want to miss it, subscribe and click the bell icon now. That will ensure that you get notified anytime a new video appears on the channel, including new live streams. On September 12th, I hosted the TSG train crew for a private virtual hangout. In this meeting, Michelle Kempema was our special guest. It just so happens that Michelle's on the train crew as well, but I wanted to have a talk with her about some of the things that she does that don't involve the Colorado Model Railroad Museum. We had a great discussion, and I recorded it so I could share it on the channel here. I should mention, though, that train crew members were there live, and they got to ask their own questions while Michelle was available to answer. It's one of the perks of being on the TSG train crew. We've been doing virtual hangouts like this for the past several months and had special guests like Michelle and Jack Burgess on to answer questions and share their insights. We have a great time, and you're invited to become a member of the TSG train crew too. You'll enjoy hangouts like what I just described, as well as sneak peeks and exclusive content that's presented ad-free and in 4K ultra-high definition to our private channel. But hey, don't take my word for it. If you know someone, anyone who's already on the crew, ask them if it's worth it. Anyway, on September 18th, we went out to Santa Cruz to the Fern Creek and Western Garden Railroad for a test run session. Our friends out there did a ton of work over the past several months to redesign just about the entire layout. They not only redesigned things, but they also relayed pretty much all of the track, changing out a lot of it to flex track for better curves. They added elevated garden boxes to one of the side yards, installed new passing sidings, realigned rivers, lowered a tunnel, leveled bridges, expanded the logging branch, and regraded the entire right-of-way to make it more consistent. When you make changes like that, you need to make sure it all works. So the purpose of the test session was to check out how the layout, and especially how all the passing sidings will work during future open house events. There were about 8 people there who operated the layout, just like it would during an open house, and it was pretty good. Everything worked quite well. While there, I recorded quite a bit of video footage. The weather was nothing short of perfect, and I think the highlight of that day was seeing the live steam run toward the end of the day. You'll see a program about it later this month. The next day, September 19th, was another perfect day weather-wise. So we went out with some friends to chase trains. The first half of the day was spent in a place called Pinole, watching the Union Pacific Main Line. We saw the Amtrak Coast Starlight, the California Zephyr, some Amtrak California trains, a huge UP coal train, and after that we headed to Niles for some lunch and then chased the Niles Canyon Railway steam train as it made 2 runs out of Pinole down to Niles and back. This was all documented for the next episode of Chasing Trains. That comes out next week here on the channel. The TSG train crew already got to watch it, ad-free and in 4K Ultra HD, like I just mentioned a minute ago. So on September 20th, we presented the first virtual TSG Live Crew Lounge program here on the channel. The discussion was about model railroading during the pandemic, and because it was held virtually, I was able to bring in people from other parts of the country as well as our local panelists. I think a live virtual stream like this presents a really great opportunity for more voices, as opposed to meeting in person at the Santa Clara Depot like we were doing prior to the pandemic. I think meeting in person is more fun, and I really enjoyed bringing those live streams to you a lot. And I'm really looking forward to a time when we can do that again, because it's another excuse to hang out with friends. But the fact of the matter is, we're adapting to the situation, and technology really makes that a lot easier. The next Crew Lounge show is going to be about narrow gauge, and that's later this month. On September 24th, we met our friends Trevor and Paul in Watsonville to check out some loaded flat cars that were being moved out of a biofuel plant. We've had our eyes on this move for the past month or two, and we're talking 89-foot flat cars loaded with some of the most unusual equipment I think I've ever seen loaded on anything. It was an assortment of big pipes and valves and frame-like structures that were really reminiscent of an oversized moonshine distiller or something like that. That was a sight to behold for sure, and to top it all off, the friendly crew of the St. Paul and Pacific did the honor of moving the stuff to the Union Pacific Yard at Watsonville Junction that day. Expect to see a video about this move at some point in the near future, simply because it's not something that you see every day. And finally, on the 28th, so this past Monday, I went out to Morgan Hill to catch those same loaded flat cars that I just mentioned going north on the Union Pacific local job that sends them to a place called Warm Springs. I met my friend Kevin at the Caltrain station in Morgan Hill, and while we were there, we also caught the Rock Train, which is another local that goes out of Watsonville. These are 2 of only about 3 regular freight trains that work on the coastline near where I live, and we caught them both within about 30 minutes of each other. So it was a very efficient use of time out catching trains in Morgan Hill at night that night. So last month I told you about some of the TSG train crew members' YouTube channels, and this month I want to tell you about a few more. Possum Bayou is a channel run by a guy named Rusty, and Rusty lives in Mississippi. He does sort of how-to stuff on his channel, and you can tell that he has a real fun time while he's at it. Gary Perazzo, also known around here as Goofy Gary, you know him from Chasing Trains and other things on the channel, he also has a YouTube channel as well. It's called Gary Perazzo. You can find it most easily searching for Goofy Gary on YouTube, and I think he likes it that way. And finally, Kevin Hill's YouTube channel is called Kevin2472. If you ever want a preview of what you might see on an upcoming Chasing Trains episode, you just might see some of the action we caught trackside on his channel. I guess that goes for Gary's channel as well. Both of those guys release their run-by compilations before I get through the editing process for the Chasing Trains episodes. So there's a great chance if they were on Chasing Trains, you're going to see their footage as well. And now for the catch of the month. Lucas Woodward from Australia sent in the following photos. This first one from January of this year shows former South African Railways Garrett NGG 16129 at Belgrave on the Puffing Billy Railway. The second photo is of Puffing Billy Locomotive 7A passing Nobilius Station in September of 2019. And the third photo is of a 12-inch gauge locomotive called Merlin on the privately owned Linton Railway in May of this year. Lucas has a YouTube channel called R711 6A Fan. I had a look and I have to tell you that he gets some excellent video. Good enough that I subscribed just from watching his trailer. Next up is a vintage shot from Tom McAdams, who sent in this photo of Southern Pacific ST40T-2 8276 with an L window and SP light package. Tom took this shot in the summer of 1987 near Woodford on Tehachapi. And finally, the last shot is a video from yours truly. I caught the St. Paul and Pacific GP15-1 number 1500, the city of Watsonville, on its way to the UP yard in Watsonville on September 24th, just like I told you a minute ago, with those interesting flat car loads I also told you about just a minute ago. This is definitely something you don't see every day. So if you have a photo or photos that you'd like to share on the podcast here, please email them to podcast@tsgmultimedia.com. Be sure that you own the photo and let me know the what, when, and where of the shots that you want to share. And now for this month's YouTube program schedule. On October 9th, we have a special N-Scale Friday that was produced in 4K Ultra High Definition. On October 10th, it's the return of Chasing Trains. For this episode, we went to Pinole and then to Niles Canyon. On October 16th, we have a product spotlight. On the 17th, it's the test run and layout update from the Fern Creek and Western Garden Railroad. It's also my mom's birthday, so happy birthday, Mom. On October 23rd, it's N-Scale Friday once again. October 24th features a special presentation about logging inclines with Jack Burgess. On October 25th at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, it's our next edition of the TSG Live Crew Lounge. This will be a virtual panel discussion streamed live with our panelists discussing narrow gauge. On the 30th, it's a product spotlight. On October 31st, that's right, October has 5 Saturdays this year, we have a Wild Card Saturday, which will feature a conversation with Michelle Kempema from the virtual hangout with the TSG train crew that I told you about a few minutes ago. Finally, on November 6th, we have one more product spotlight before the next podcast. This also happens to be my dad's birthday, so happy birthday, Dad! I mentioned earlier that I will most likely go on with another live talk show this month. Again, I don't know for sure when that'll happen, so stay alert if you'd like to be included. So that's all I have for you this time. Now, before I go, I want to invite you one more time to become a part of the TSG train crew on Patreon. I think you'll feel great about helping put the content that you enjoy out on the channel, and you'll also get some cool perks too, including ad-free 4K ultra high definition content before the rest of the world even knows it's coming. As always, I thank you for your continued support, and I'll see you next time.